Hi everyone, my name is Isabel and I have been a proud member of the SWAN group for only a couple of months. I was very moved when Altera asked me to join, and also when she contacted me to do a video about family and activism. I thought it was a good idea to give you some context, because when she asked me this, I went into how activism has been in my family and what has it meant. So I want to share a few things with you. These are my grandparents in Cuba. My grandfather was a banker, and when Fidel Castro came, he had to exile. He was lucky enough to exile through Atlanta, Georgia, where he had a job, and we all were very blessed because he helped us all get our citizenship very early on in life. This is my dad. This is how young my dad was when he had to exile and migrate from Spain with his father in a submarine because they wanted to kill him. My father married my mom when my grandfather exiled to Cuba. My father married my mom, and then they had to exile because of Castro, and my parents had to leave through Mexico, where my father had a job in a scoutism, scouts. He was the editor for the scouts, so he was also very fortunate to have a job and to thrive in a new country. So my mom, we didn't agree on everything in life, but she always found the silver lining in her condition as a refugee first and then as an immigrant. And what was most amazing about her, what is still most amazing about her, is that she would always find people who needed more than she did. And even as a young kid, my parents didn't have very much, and my mom would take us once a month to the nearest orphanage where we would feed and be with the children at the orphanage and spend time with them. I think that has been the most valuable lesson my mom has taught me in activism, and to this date is what brings us closer together. This is me as a little girl in Mexico, and only a few years later, when my parents then, with my father's job, they moved to Costa Rica, and we started a new life again. This was all good. This was voluntarily. And at 18 years old, some Cubans escaped through Costa Rica, and I decided to go and bring them coffee. I was only 18 years old, but when I started giving them coffee and realizing that they had a lot of needs, I also discovered that some of the donations, most of the donations that were being sent to them by the American relatives, they were being stolen, and they were only getting rice and beans for many weeks in a row, and they were being treated like criminals. So I got very involved, and I ended up having police custody provided by the president of Costa Rica at only 18 years old. And I experienced there that someone's outrage can make a big difference in the life of many people. So this also marked me for life. Later, I moved back to the United States with my grandparents, and again I became a citizen, thank God. And it was the first time in my life that I had a sense of country. I didn't feel like a Mexican. I was certainly not a Cuban or Spanish or Costa Rican. I felt like an American, and I took that in stride. I became a teacher, a PTA president who raised thousands of dollars for my children's schools almost every year, because I was also very serious at being a mom, and I wanted to spend a lot of time with my daughters. So here I am as a school teacher, and this is my daughter right there. This is how young my kids were when we started getting also involved in activism, because as a PTA president, I worked a lot to raise money, but then I also started discovering things that weren't going right. The school ratios and the construction of the large buildings for, public offices that were, taking a toll in the space that children needed to play, and that this was only for money for contractors and politicians. So I decided to go deeper and become a serious activist and go out in the streets with my megaphone and raise money and stop them. And as a matter of fact, we did also stop them from building those huge buildings at a point and acquiring debt that will make it more expensive for people like me, a school teacher, to live in that neighborhood. So, the years went by, and here I am now, and my kids are bigger, and of course, but my husband has worked for American companies selling American products all over the world, and we've been relocated in different places, and now I'm back here in the United States with Donald Trump. But I was very surprised when my children got together and said, "Mom, we want our family vacation to be going to the march, of the Million Women's March," and they investigated everything, and we planned this trip, and it was one of the most beautiful experiences we've ever had. Here is us at the march, and we haven't stopped protesting and rallying and making phone calls and being together as a family again. This is my daughter Lucia. At the inauguration, she wanted to protest with Planned Parenthood, the inauguration, the day we arrived in Washington. So it's only been rewarding in my family life since my mother and my grandparents, public service and activism. I think we came to this world to find love, light, and truth. And I think activism is the active pursuit of love, light, and truth. You find it every day. It is a habit being an activist. You wake up and you put on your pin, and you automatically become awake, aware, and alert of what is going on. You cannot do anything about the nature of this place of duality. This is true. There is glorious joy and horrible pain happening simultaneously. But activism is the one way where you can eliminate unnecessary suffering that comes from hiding from the world's predicaments, pretending nothing is happening, pretending there are not poor, there are no refugees. It's in itself something very painful. Activism is the opposite of that. And it's also the giving part, the part where you give yourself, where you have to become someone that is giving. And you do that at home, but when you do it with other people, giving is your saving grace in any crisis. When you're desperate, when everything is falling apart and you give, it changes your perspective and it changes everything around you. And also, all of this awake, aware, and alert, and the grace of giving becomes something that is manifest in all other areas in your life, in your relationships, with your partner, with your wife, with your husband, with your children, with your parents. It changes the dialect, it changes the perspective. You're always open to change because challenges are always changing, and you become used to that by being active. You also thrive as you become more efficient with your time. You waste less time complaining because you are doing something about it. You become more creative as you juggle your time as a mother, a professional, an activist. You have to make phone calls. You don't waste as much time. Your day has a lot of more space in it for some reason. I also learned in time that every human being has 5 inherent qualities, and activism is the fertile ground for those qualities to flourish and thrive and share with others. Those qualities are gratitude, and when you're an activist, you're grateful for your life as you help others who are not having such a good time. To say it in some way, you also, another quality is humility. When you're an activist, you can only be an activist out of humility and compassion and empathy, and knowing that you don't know anything, that you can't do anything by yourself, that you need to find others, and you need the union and the hope in union. Another one of those 5 inherent qualities that I learned we all have is inner strength. Inner strength to not take things personally. Inner strength to keep going every day beyond the result of that particular day. Inner strength to be able to have the right perception for the right cause, the right battle, the right words. And the last of those 5 inherent qualities is our capacity to take action. And you see something and you understand something and you can have a clear perception of the truth. The next thing you do or you need to do is to act. And that is the act of activism. So no matter how uphill the battle, activism will always move you forward. As a person, as a family, as a neighborhood, a community, a city, a town, a country.